Welcome to This Week in Events for the 1st of August. And I'm joined by Jill Hawkins, NSC PR,
Hello.
and Paul Richardson of
Oh,
Vivid Inc.
People can't hear you
hello,
wave,
hi.
Paul.
Yes, you need the audio wave.
Good morning.
Anyway, how's your week been, guys?
Busy, very, very busy, which sort of leads us into Paul's nicely.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes. Why have you been so busy, Paul?
we've been swimming through an infinite number of event industry award entries. And if you want, my little topic for this week, the thing to chat about is the value of awards is, I think, appreciated by everybody. The fact that entering awards puts your brand in front of people, even if you're not shortlisted, the judges get to see it. So you create a ping of recognition amongst the judges. If you're shortlisted, you've then got an opportunity to celebrate that shortlisting, and it goes out on all of the comms for the awards people. And if you win, that's the icing on the cake. That's when you get the banners out and the flags and yippee, look, we won an award. And it adds credibility and kudos because people still do take notice of awards. But the thing I'm slightly puzzled about is why everybody in the industry seems to compress their award entries into this time of year. Reason I think it needs some of the award organisers need to have a little rethink about this is you've got a finite amount of time for clients and clients to be able to engage with you to prepare the awards entries. You can gather information up during the year for those entries where you can, but you're always going to have that little bit of a run up. And I've had so many clients over 20 years that have said, yes, we're going to put a new process in this year. And the 3 weeks before event deadline, you're still running around trying to get the right image, the right quote, the right bit of information, the last few facts, last bits of detail. But when they put them all together, that's forcing agencies and clients to some degree to decide which awards they're going to enter. So if they're going to enter them themselves and write their own award entries, that means they've got to have enough staff available at that time to be able to do the writing. They're going to go out to agencies. The agencies have to have the resources, which they'll probably flex, but it'll probably cost the client more money because of the time spent. And the agencies might have to factor in bringing in a couple of freelancers to help out with that particular bottleneck. But what it also does is it makes it difficult because you've got to go and find people who are at this time of year, first week of right at the start of school holidays, in vacation mode. So the key person in the company might be on holiday. The key clients you want to interview might be away. The person who's taking the photographs won't be. If it's in the outdoor events industry rather than indoor events, we're right in the middle of busy season. Everybody's out on site, setting up, de-rigging, organising, planning, putting on events. There needs to be a little bit of thought about how do we make this work for everybody so that all of the awards get the treatment that they deserve. They all get good, strong, credible entries. And it also allows those companies that maybe aren't equipped with a big marketing department that they can deploy somebody off to go and do this. So those companies that are pretty much all hands-on are going to find it hard to gather the information and to build award entries. So I've got a major plea for those who are running awards. Have a look at the calendar and see if you can spread them out a bit. See if you can just have a think about where to position your awards so that you get the best entries. And the awards ceremony, you might want it late in the year because that's the time when everybody's going to come and buy your tables. But if people are struggling to enter the awards and they don't get their award entries in, they're not going to be likely to come and buy tables and come to the event and that part of the revenue generation. So there's an element there where this is my plea. Now I've done my monologue, I'll get off my soapbox, but it's a real plea. If awards are a valuable PR tool, let's make them easy to use. Let's have a think about how to make it easy for everybody, clients, agencies, and clients' to participate in them. And so endeth the sermon from Paul Richardson, soapbox now going away.
That's spot on, though. I couldn't have said it any better myself, in that I think the period of awards tends to cover spring as well, doesn't it? Because I think spring and early summer tends to be when we enter awards, and then autumn into slight winter into November is when we celebrate those awards, and that's when the ceremony is. But my ask is, same as you, could the award organisers not announce the awards really early? What's if they're not going to, if perhaps after the ceremony, have a little bit of a wash up, have a plan, see what we're going to cover next year, and announce then. And then we can start on them directly after the actual awards. I understand that they might want to tweak them each year, introduce new ones, drop the ones that weren't so popular, things evolve. But actually, why not do it early?
Yeah, agreed. Give everybody a heads up. There are things we're trying to put in place with clients after this session, a way of trying to help make it a little less of a lumpy business from our point of view, and also from the client's point of view, because we're trying to help the clients. And when you've got 10 different award entries that you've finished and you send back over for proofing, you've just put a whole load of work back on their desks. So they might not appreciate that, and that might be, well, forget it, we'll not do it because we haven't got time, or we're out on site, or then they start to question the value. Oh, we didn't enter it last year and nothing happened, so we'll not bother again this year. And it damages the awards themselves, which is a real shame. And as I said before, it then starts to make it only achievable by people who've got big budgets or marketing teams. So it then starts to make it, dare I say, slightly elitist. And the small guys who do fantastic pieces of work, and it may just be a little niche. They might want just one award they can enter, but they don't have the time. And the awards themselves miss out on celebrating that one piece of brilliance. And it seems a shame.
Is there anything in the way of... is there a problem with some of the awards? Not all of them, but some of the awards, it is a financial investment to take part, as in pay to play.
Oh, good question. With some awards, yes, you have to pay to enter. Now, that's a very different thing. I've just done the Event Tech Awards, and yes, it's a fee to enter the awards. And yes, it should. I get where they're coming from. It's an admin thing where from their perspective, they've got to pay somebody to actually build the system, the awards platform. They've got to pay somebody to actually refine, send things, do the admin, send things over to the judges, that sort of thing. I get that, because it's never that expensive. It's normally about 100 quid, that sort of thing, for an award. So judging by the number of entries that the Event Tech Awards get, because they are very, very popular, I think that's not a barrier. The ones that frustrate me are the ones that are slightly spurious, in that you only get shortlisted if you are a customer of that organization. They might be free to enter, but you only get shortlisted if you're a customer of that organization. Or they are spurious, like the one I mentioned earlier, where a client of mine, who will remain nameless, will got an email saying, you've been nominated in the XYZ Awards, and the XYZ was nothing to do with them at all. And you could then go through to the next round if you paid.
Yeah.
And we just walked away.
We had one of those. It was a business celebration award.
Oh,
You've been you're a finalist in the Something Business Celebrations Awards, and it's going to cost you, I don't know what it was, everything's fine, but we charge you for the trophy and the admin fee, and it's something like £345. And from what I could see, is that everybody that paid the £345 won a trophy. And there's pictures of people standing obviously in their own offices, because they've had the trophy posted to them. So you're basically buying a trophy for £345. You may as well just go down to the trophy guys that you see at the shows and buy your own. It'll be a fraction of the price.
DIY awards. I like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is there any problem with awarding yourself as Company of the Year? I mean, you can have any category you like and just buy yourself a trophy.
There is that phrase about self-praise being no praise at all. I've got a bank of these little phrases I can roll out at any time if you want them.
I haven't heard that one before.
But partly that, I mean, going back to Jill's point about the pay and play, with the Event Tech Awards, I'm quite keen and I quite like the way that they're organised, because I'm giving Paul and Adam their due. They used to run an award ceremony, but they then made the decision that this doesn't feel right and sit right. So then you pay to enter, they're judged, and they're presented at the end of the first day of the show, live on the show floor. There's no entry fee. Everybody just herds down to one of the big inflatable stage covers where the main stage is, and stand there and cheer and shout as people go on. And it's a lovely community buzz atmosphere. I think the problems come is where you pay to enter, then you pay £500 a head to have a seat at a table, and then I think, as you say, Jill, you then go to these and you may be shortlisted, but then you look at the list of winners, and then you go, oh, they're a sponsor. They've done something else at a part of that organisation's portfolio. Then you start to look and you kind of think, oh, well, all the winners are people who've essentially paid by another means.
I actually think that there are awards out there that you don't, where do I start? These days, award ceremonies, award organizations make a big deal about selecting judges and those judges being impartial. And I totally get that. But the judges often only see the shortlist, because I've judged before several awards, so I'm not naming any names, and I only got the shortlist. I didn't get the 15, 20 people that actually entered that award. I got the 5 that was the shortlisted. So who decided the long list to the short list? That wasn't judged. That was purely commercial, I believe.
Just while I big up the Event Tech Lives again, and Adam Parry owes me a huge beer for this one.
And I can just say I've never judged those, so that's not the ones I'm talking about.
No, me neither. But I was having a conversation with him because just in one of those joking moments about, are there going to be 45 companies on the shortlist this year? And because their shortlists are a long shortlist, and his take, and I thought it was very refreshing, was we have set criteria for people to submit the information. You must give us these details and it must be completed to this standard. And he said, as long as that's done, they go through, because who are we to prejudge the judges?
Yeah.
So
totally.
they answer that question right at the outset and say, yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Judge, you may have 14 people to judge, but all of these entries passed the requirements they were asked to submit.
Yeah.
Now you decide which is the best out of this lot. And you kind of think, yeah, that has some merit. Or you have a pre-judging panel, a shortlisting panel and a judging panel. I know they do that in quite a few awards in America. So they'll get, I mean, it's always a considerably bigger country than ours. So they shove in loads of award entries and they have a pre-judging panel with criteria, so that you have to get through first level. Then you go on to the shortlist. Then you're judged by the elite judges. And it's an interesting approach.
Just to finish this subject off, when people say I had to pay to go into whatever stage of the competition, of the thing, and it doesn't matter whether you've paid £50 or £1,000, there's still that idea in your head of, or in most people's heads, that you had to pay to take part. Does that tarnish the award in any way? If the winner of the award has had to pay, and it's seen as almost like there's a connection between paying to take part and winning the award, does it degrade the award anyway? Does it tarnish it?
I think that at the end of the day, we have organizations that are there to make money. Fair play to them. That's their business model, and they run awards, and you can't blame them for wanting to make money out of it, of course. And as long as so you might have to pay to enter those awards. Many of the industry awards, you have to actually pay to take part. So you pay an entry fee, which, yes, could be a barrier to entry, but at least it's upfront and it's honest, and it then puts everybody on the same platform. That to me is fine. because marketing isn't free. Placing an advert isn't free. All these other things that we do as a company perhaps aren't free because somebody is there to make money. But it's when you get shortlisted, if you've paid, that's wrong. And if you pay to enter, yes, but then you're on a platform with everybody else. Don't pay to get a finalist or shortlisted.
So it's the transparency that's the important part.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a good. My last point on this, I think Jules is a good point. As long as the part about the credibility of the awards is if people can see, and we talked about, shall we say, payments via other routes. If people can see that and see that happens, then one, it'll discourage people from entering, and the credibility of the awards disappears, and that's damaging for all of us because everybody wants to see awards, celebrations of the industry, people doing great work. It is hugely valuable, but it's only valuable if it has honesty and integrity, and that's the key. But spread. My original point was spread them out. Spread them out, Pete.
Spread out. Absolutely. And I'll just bring the EVCOM Awards into this as well, because they've just announced that the deadline, I think, was next week, but they've just announced the deadline is going to be end of September. And I really applaud that because that's giving people all over the summer. That's really, I'm sure a lot of people have now just gone, right, we can get an award entry together. And the process is very short for them as well. They're very quick to do. But I think that the association awards are very credible. They have to be, but the associations are not for profit mainly. So they do ask for money at some point. MIA awards are free to enter, but then you then are paid to attend the ceremony. And I think each one has a model, but with most of them, they do like to make a little bit of money just to cover their own expenses, which you can't blame them.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Good.
I mean, we could actually go on and keep talking about this because it's just something that, for example, all these entries end up having extensions.
Yeah.
And I mean, as I say, this could be a completely different episode about why there are. Every year there's extension. We're giving you more time, but as I say, that's Oh, you want to say something about this, Paul? So go on. Last thing.
Let's revisit it a couple of times in future podcasts, and let's pick a little bit. We've kind of done a bit of a one on timing more than anything else.
Yeah. I mean, the timing is a very important part of it because, if you're using an agency, then, you might have all your clients going, oh, let's all take part, and then you're overwhelmed. And I think they should be using agencies because it's not copy and paste. You can't, your entry for one awards is going to be different for another one because each award has a different covers a different sector of the industry. So you just can't copy and paste. You need some expert opinion in there to write these entries in a way that appeals. And both of you know how to write entries for different, award ceremonies. They're not the same.
Absolutely. It's just being clear and concise.
Which leads into the next thing, Jill, which is hope you're not writing your award entries with AI.
Well, I thought this was really interesting. Corporate Affairs, the amazing Helen Dunn, who writes a publication for the internal corporate affairs industry, she did a piece about what are the robots reading? And a new report suggests that 95% of links cited by AI are from non-paid media. So AI, when it's asked a question, will go out and scour the internet, and the things it picks up on are what we would call traditional PR. Earned media, where a journalist has actually published, or content, corporate blogs, aggregator sites like Wikipedia and press releases. I thought that was really interesting, that actually AI is learning from the likes of us, Paul, and you, Bob.
But it had to, because being so young, you'll find it, or looking so young, you'll find it hard to believe that I was around when the internet first kicked off. And we went through the whole gamut of the SEO fun and games, where you were writing content peppered with keywords and key phrases. So it's like the bed manufacturer that is making beds, and in the and beds and bed manufacturer and beds, and that very quickly the search engines kind of got wise, and their search bots kind of went, if this is the format of the copy and the text, delist this site. The same with a little scam that ran for a year or so was to put all of the search terms and the key phrases in white on a white background. And people suddenly started getting great search engine rankings until the search engine guys kind of went, oh, hang on a minute, we're being scammed here. Tell you what, if background color equals font color, delist site, and sites fell off the internet like there was no tomorrow for search engine rankings. And AI, the guys who are running AI, their drive now to make it a search tool that puts stuff back, they're obviously bright enough to understand that you don't want the AI to just return Gemini to bring back what ChatGPT's just written. You want to find the real information so that your users keep using it because they're getting proper, decent information they can act upon. So it's going to start finding methods of detecting, and we talked about this in a previous podcast, about detecting the format and the style of AI and how AI phrases, and your favorite word that keeps reappearing that nobody's ever used in the last 20 years. Which was it?
I'm just going to foster.
Foster.
Foster. Oh, it's such an American word, and it's going to come back into the English into English usage because it's an AI term, and I'm seeing it a lot more now.
Yeah. And the other one is when it says, not only does it do this, but, so the not only but phrasing and structure that in AI is so common. I mean, I find it slightly frustrating because I like to use that. So I've had to deprogram myself from doing it.
Same with the M dash. AI really likes the M dash and or N. I get confused between the two. And I use that a lot in my writing and think, oh, people are going to think it's AI now if I'm using that. So I'm using more commas.
Interestingly enough, I was reading about how the education sector is using AI detectors to spot AI-generated theses and things like that, and they're looking at this. They're looking at patterns and repeat patterns within an essay, and then repeat patterns across multiple essays. So you can see whether it's a writing style of a person or whether it's somebody using a chat GPT. And it was a fascinating piece about them interrogating where's this come from, how does it they also breaks down, this piece of software breaks down the piece into phrases and then looks for published articles with similar phrases to see if there's any plagiarism in there as well, because all the AI does is it goes off and finds stuff and brings it back to you, and it can assemble the copy, but you could be breaching somebody else's copyright and be accused of plagiarism. So, there is a case for having idiots like us write it from scratch with real words.
With real words, and in the tone of the person that you're writing it for as well, because my clients write very differently. I write very differently depending on who I'm writing for. That's part of our skill, really, isn't it? To make it sound like them. How can AI make it sound like somebody if they don't know them, if they've never spoken to them?
Well, this is the problem. AI will sound like AI.
Yeah.
And if it's then processing AI written content, then it's going to end up just being so bland.
Yeah, it's the blandness.
It'll be eating itself effectively because there's nothing new coming into the chain.
But my thing with this article, though, was that LLMs, large language models, are sourcing their information from traditional PR. So I thought that was a real bonus and a bit of a flag waving thing for making sure companies are still doing earned media, journalistic content, blogs, that sort of thing. So if you want to feed AI, and for people looking for your venue or your supplier through AI, make sure your PR and your blogs are up to date.
But that's a really important thing to remember, that if PR handwritten by people, blog posts should be handwritten by people, social media posts. And if AI or large language models are favoring that kind of content, that means it really wants human written content. for processing and presenting. And from my experience, most of the time they provide little links where you can find out more of why it said such a thing.
Yeah.
Also this week, Google launches AI mode, where it's not so much a list of links, but it's just block of text to tell you something. Can't stand it. Turned it off straight away.
Oh, you mean at the top when you do a search and it comes up with that text at
AI
the top?
mode, and
I've had that on.
type in a search query. Why does such and such? And you get the AI summary and then a bunch of links. But in AI mode, it's just an AI response with things you can click on to find out where it came from. I can't stand it.
I've used it for diagnosis. That sounds awful, doesn't it? Is this, tell me about the symptoms of kidney disease. Well, it's not me. It was a friend of mine that's just been diagnosed with it. And so an AI was great at pulling together sources actually yeah, it worked. It did work well, but I think it depends. It's horses for courses, isn't it?
I've used it for similar purposes to Jill, and given it a time when looking to comment on something. Give it a time frame. Say, go find this any link references with link to original source on this subject between these dates in this industry, and it comes back and tabulate the results, and it'll come back to the table with the content title. You can even ask it to write a little abstract or pull an abstract out that can run down. That's relevant. That's not. That is. That isn't. Oh, I'll follow that one through. So you can get it to do a bit of background research, a bit of hunting, and bringing new stuff forward. But I still think for writing to have credibility and fit into this thing that we're talking about, the human written word, is you then do as you used to do traditionally. Is once you've got your sources and you've got material together, is then you then start to compile something. And Jill's point about writing for people, I used to write a lot of presentations and speeches for senior execs to go and stand on podiums and pontificate about presentation of annual report and accounts and all that fun and games. And what I found was a trick, and I don't know if you do the same, Jill. When I'm reading what I've written on behalf of somebody, I have to hear their voice in my head say it. So it follows
Absolutely.
their rhythm.
Do you do the accents?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'll give Ron Peterson a plug. I hope he's still around. Best chief exec I've ever worked with. Big bouncy American guy. Absolutely just force of nature, great personality. And I used to hear this West Coast American accent reading what I put, and you go back and go, no, he wouldn't phrase it like that. And switch things around and change things about. He'd not use that word. That's not in his lexicon. He'd have a different word for that. And I think that the problem with using LLMs, and also even worse now, these meta engines that sit on top. So don't you've seen them? What one platform an app that you can go in and you put your social media and your things. There's a couple of them advertised. I won't libel anybody on or defame anybody on here, but there's quite a few of them where they say, an advert dropped into my social media feed this morning while I was having a quick look what was happening, and it said one person can now replace an agency of 15 people. You push your stuff in and the AI model just churns out your social media posts, your blog posts, your press releases, everything. And you kind of think, wow, that at one point you can kind of go, well, that's exciting. And then you think, wow, and if everybody's doing that and this particular language model is processing that, everybody is going to have the same tone of voice, the same intonation, the same lack of humor. So you lose the originality, that fizz that makes reading something interesting.
If you don't check to see what it's produced and put into your queue for sharing, and it's just happened to hallucinate and come up with something really, really awful, and you don't check it, you're done for.
Oh, absolutely.
Your brand is ruined.
I must tell people in conversations about AI, once a week, the whole hallucination thing comes up, that if you ask it for a list of 5 pink bicycles, it will give you a list of 5 pink bicycles, even if it can only find 4, because it's responding to your request for 5. So it will make the 5th one up. Yep. I mean, I've asked it for research because I thought, oh, this could be a good platform for, this is just ChatGPT. I'm going to go out and say, oh, is there any research in the events industry that confirms that delegates are more likely to learn if they're in the morning than the afternoon, or something like that? I can't remember exactly what it was. And it came back with all these research, and I said, oh, find the links for these, please, so I can go and read them. Oh, what links? You've just cited some research. Give me the links. Oh no, these were just examples. So they weren't real. They were not real.
I think to finish this off, I think it's very important that people should remember and keep it in their heads that AI generated content, whether it's research or suggestions, it's the start of what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not the end point.
Yeah.
You ask it for a 500-word recap of what's happened within your industry in the last week. Yeah, okay, you've got something you could copy and paste, but you've got to have it in your head that that's a start, because at the bottom of all the pages, every AI platform should, if it does it should, we kind of make mistakes sometimes, especially about people.
It's sort of like a junior. I find it almost like as almost a junior reporter, a junior account exec who can do a first draft, can think of, pull some information together, and then you go through and refine it, and then you go through and go, oh God, no, you wouldn't say that. But as a first draft, it's usable, but it's a tool. People misuse tools. I compare it to the early days of desktop publishing, and when CorelDRAW and those sorts of platforms came in, where suddenly everybody could design their own flyers, and they look terrible. And just because you can do it doesn't mean to say you've got the eye to do it. A flyer with 15 different fonts and different sizes and things, they're just awful. You still need the skill to be able to fine tune.
Yeah, it's got a really good tool for designing stars, so every flyer had stars all over it. It's just the way it works.
Yeah.
I'd like to move on, and this is my suggestion, and it's controversial, difficult, but I think it needs to be called out and talked about.
We had to talk about it, really, didn't we?
It has to be talked about. So Tuesday, there was an article published by the chairman of Mass Media on Exhibition News. Okay, so I was going to say give you an idea of what was said, but it's not the thing I want to discuss as such. So basically, the article is outlining that, well, not even outlining, it was explicit, that hotels, restaurants, taxi stand builders, and on-site caterers, this is not my next word, but they were compared to parasites on the event industry, as they don't contribute back to the event ecosystem. I'm not don't want anything about who wrote it or perhaps the motivations behind the writing of it, but do those sectors, hotels, restaurants, taxi stand builders, and on-site caterers, do they actually have a case to answer?
What do you mean by giving back? Because I would argue that if a delegate visitor comes to an exhibition and they can get a taxi there, that makes their journey easier. They're more likely to get there. They're more likely to arrive feeling happy and open. It's that wraparound. If they can get something nice to eat after the show, they can take clients and book a restaurant. I think it's the ecosystem, isn't it, that they all contribute.
I think it was motivated by a financial consideration, but the question still is, do they have a case to answer? I mean, if, as you said, a taxi company will help your delegates go from whatever place they arrive at, whether it's an airport, train station, tube station, whatever, and they need a way of getting to wherever the thing's happening, whether it's a conference meeting, whatever, they've got to get to the venue. Uber or some local taxi company provides a vehicle and driver. What does that driver and company owe the event industry ecosystem in return?
What do they owe theatre? What do they owe sporting activities? Should they contribute to the sporting industry? These are all just questions. Should they contribute financially to the sporting industry, to the theatre, to supermarkets, anywhere that they're taking people? Should they contribute to those?
If the little comparison I could think of is a taxi driver on behalf of his company takes a delegate to a conference.
Yeah.
Now, if he's expected to give back, does that mean to say that next time he's planning a birthday party for either a family member or for children, is he then obligated to hire an event planner to make that party happen? Is this what we're talking about? Is that a valid comparison?
But I would say this notion of contributing back is in what context? Is it fiscal? Is it providing a service that makes life better for people participating at the event? As a frequent attender to hundreds of events, if I'm going to an event, whatever it may be, and I am going to attend, if there is a hotel nearby, that's making my attendance easier. If there is a taxi that can take me to and from there, that's making it easier for me. If there's somebody providing food there, that's making it easier for me. Those things contribute to making my decision to attend that event more likely. Because if I look at an event and they say stuck in the middle of nowhere, there's no train nearby, because do you go that? How asinine do you want to take this? Do the train operators need to be contributing to this because they bring people from the sticks like us to London to attend events in London? So shouldn't the train companies contribute to this? It's absolutely a fallacious argument. It's incredibly frustrating because it negates the fact that. Quick example, I gave this to Jill the other day when we were talking about something else. The automotive industry. You liken the people who are putting on on an event, the organisers, to the automotive manufacturers. So let's pick Volkswagen. Volkswagen builds its cars and sells them. There is a massive ecosystem around the cars that Volkswagen sell. There's the people who make the tyre. Well, first of all, there's the people who make the parts to allow them to put the car together in the first place, because Volkswagen doesn't make all of its own stuff. So you've got all those parts suppliers. You've then got the people who make tyres, aftermarket tyres. You've got the associated garages that are dealer networks, but you've also got thousands of independent garages that keep that company's products on the road, where that company may prefer to actually sell a new car every 2 years and scrap the 2-year-old one. But there are people who service people like me who are too tight to buy a new car by keeping my old car on the road, and they buy aftermarket clutches and aftermarket brake pads. Are they parasites? Should they be putting something back in? Should they be giving Volkswagen more money? It really is a narrow argument, because what all of those people are doing is enabling the automotive industry to keep going. They're supporting the whole automotive ecosystem. And I would say in the events industry, all those people have created a small amount of they've taken a risk. They've created a small business or a medium-sized business to slot into a gap in the market that's needed to make the whole thing bigger, better. And I would say the fact that they've chosen to do that, spend their life doing it, spend their working time and invest their own money, that is putting something back into the ecosystem. Not on a financial, here's a bung, but on a, here I'm going to do something that's going to make the people coming to your event want to come.
But there's also I get the gist of the article is a financial thing. It's trying to put my thoughts in order. It's got to be more about the money. If you're giving back it to the ecosystem, the article was suggesting it's a fiscal thing. It's money orientated. But can you not give back to the industry through mentoring? By being active in an association and helping people. Isn't that not the same?
Absolutely. It's that, you can be part of an industry, joining the association, going to the events, exhibiting, and all those sorts of things, educating. But what about the investment that, say, he mentioned stand builders, and I'm going to bring other contractors in, that if you have a tech company that's providing tech for that exhibition, whether that be an app or a registration or whatever, that company has invested thousands in actually their own products to make the organizer's life easier. What about that investment? What about that risk that they're having? And also, I'd like to, there is that with the risk comes the spoils. The organizers, yes, they have the vision, they have the creativity. Not everyone is like that. Not everyone is able to actually create a new event and run with a new event like that. So they invest, they create this event, and hopefully they get the financial savvy back, the financial reward back from that. But there are all these other smaller organizers that are, smaller companies that are investing in their own systems to make that organizer shine. So actually, should the organizer pay money to the suppliers for their help? Yes, of course they should, because they do.
You and I, Jill, will have to fess up to being parasites on the industry, and it's the yes, we are. Are we parasites on the parasites? I mean, crikey, how meta do you want to get? Yeah,
probably.
But part of following this through, those supply chain and other providers that sit in that greater ecosystem often pay people like you and I to help promote their services. And their services are wrapped around events that are being put on by the organizer. So we are de facto promoting events as a medium as in itself. So we are actually contributing. So therefore, those people are paying us to promote not only their business but also the concept of events, which then makes it a warmer market for the organizer to promote and sell to the customer. So there's an awful lot of that. And going back to the dim and distant days when I sat client side, I'd got a £5 million budget for exhibitions globally to spend. And the exhibition contractor that we worked with, they came to us, and specifically trade exhibitions, B2B, in the engineering sector. They came to us and they would come to us with suggestions. Did you know this exhibition has started here? Now, clearly, they're not stupid. If they can convince me to go to another show, they're going to make some cash. But I have to book the space, and we have to go, and we attend the show, and it builds the show. So they are actually a catalyst for growth, but that goes unheralded. That nobody says anything about that.
They are selling the show, and also there are things that there are platforms out there that sit, don't they, between the organizer and the exhibitor that enable the exhibitor to buy lighting, furniture, or whatever. And from what I've seen of some of these platforms that sit there, they actually make it easier for the exhibitor to have a good show because they get the kit that they need. They make it easier then for the exhibition organizer to upsell. So they're helping everybody. And at the end of the day, any of those suppliers surely would only be chosen if they make the organizer journey, the organizer lives easier, or the visitor lives easier. Hopefully both.
There are 2 points of excuse me. There are 2 points of view. There is the show owner's point of view. We're doing everybody a favor by having this huge space where you can have your exhibition stand. The second view is the exhibitor view. We're doing the show a favor because we're going to be there. We're going to give you some money and we're going to be there. So I think the article is coming from the show owner's point of view. And when you then compare these other sectors as parasites, it's offended the people who think they're doing the show a favor. Now, there shouldn't have been an offensive term or an offensive comparison in the first place, but there are 2 points of view. So what are your views on that?
I think that the organisers I've spoken to that work with the suppliers that I work with. So I don't work directly with any organisers anymore. I used to. I don't at the moment. I will work for the suppliers. But in my work for the suppliers, I interview lots of their clients. So I do speak to organisers. The organisers that I speak to say, we couldn't have run our event without X supplier. They don't see them as a parasite at all. They see them as somebody that makes their job easier, that invests, that puts a lot of time and effort into training, into technology, into investing in a company to make their work easier.
There are 2 points of view, as I say. There's the organizer view, there's the exhibitor view, the client.
Not all organisers think like that, though.
But no, they don't. Some of them are fixing their view that we're doing you a massive favor. And the exhibitor are going, there's some exhibitors, not everybody, saying, we're doing you a favor because we're giving you money to be there. You couldn't do it without us. However, the interesting bit is the overlap where both parties, both viewpoints overlap, and it's agreed and it's seen, whether it's implied or not, or it's especially stated or not. You can't do it alone. You need both parties to make a successful conference, meeting, trade show, whatever it is. It's both sides. Nobody's a parasite, because without both sides coming together and overlapping and helping each other, it wouldn't actually happen.
Absolutely. And I think that's where I was disappointed, I think, in that I thought we'd moved on way further than this. You know, in 2025, I thought that was quite an old attitude, and that we are far more of an ecosystem, everyone working together for the good of the events industry.
I'm not convinced it's actually fresh content. Yeah, but that what you said, Jill's right, because the reactions on LinkedIn have varied from really disappointed with this view to I'm really offended by this view. Yeah. And it's not gone down well, put it that way.
I think it's if ever anybody wanted an example of where people with professional comms experience should vet what people are posting if they have a huge amount of influence and reach, because anybody with any professional nous would have spotted that and that one particular word and said, right, get the gist of the argument. What you're saying is going to do this. And I think this is where having an external pair of eyes on these kind of things, when you're making such an inflammatory statement, it can help all of this, because there's reputational damage. I've looked at the communication since the post went up, and the reputational damage is significant. Now, the person may not believe it; they might believe they're absolutely right, but I'd look at the volume of contesting points there and think, how much has that commercially damaged your organisation? It's a Gerald Ratner moment. It really is.
It's really not a case of whether the person who's making the argument is right or wrong. What is the perception amongst the people who have read it? So this is really a strong case for, you need an external third-party comms company to actually look at the content before you publish it, to say, you want to say what?
You could have still made the same point, the same argument, but with a far less divisive word, because that's the word people have picked up on. Yeah.
A more eloquent and more words were required. A more eloquent statement was required. Something that's a bit more gentler, where people would have actually read through it and said, yeah, I could kind of see a point. But as soon as you make that comparison, you put people's back up, whatever, you've lost the moral high ground.
Yeah.
It's gone.
You know, I've advised people before where if you want to make but you give both sides of things. You talk about the issue. You don't make accusations. You don't accuse people of being certain things. You just say, but what if we did this, or what if we did that? And do you think this? And you ask questions. You get the debate going, but in a much more inclusive sort of way. And I'm waving my arms around a lot. Sorry.
That's okay.
Well, I can't see those on audio pods, Jill. It's okay.
You can't. That's good.
Yeah. Well, if Paul's going to wave and not say anything, then that's fine. I think we should leave that there. There's an awful lot more to say, but I think we've probably said enough.
Yeah. Caution in what you write.
Yeah.
Maybe going back to Jill's point in the middle, maybe it was generated by AI. I want to get these points across, fires the AI engine up, posts it straight to.
Please create a 500-word article that uses the word parasite.
How
do I inflame the tempers of a section of the industry? Write me a 900-word post.
And actually, it's a big section that for years have felt a little bit unloved, to be honest. Yeah. I feel it's not a great. I think it's such a shame. I think it's such a shame that it's a sector that already feels unloved and a little bit ignored, and that the focus very much has been on the agencies, the organisers that create the events, not the people actually on the ground making the events.
Considering what everybody has gone through the last 5 years and the amount of suffering that is still going on because of what's happened the last 5 years.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that love and support needs to be continuously demonstrated.
Oh, and I just one last thing in that, am I right in saying, Paul, that with an organizer, if an organizer then takes on a contractor in some way, they might pay half that fee up front, but then pay half at the end. So actually the supplier's taken a big risk on doing that work.
You kind of need to, in a broader sense, there's the main contractor that works for the organizer, so Shell, Carpet, Electrics, those kind of things. And then you have stand contractors. The stand contractor's customer isn't the organizer. The stand contractor is the brand that is commissioning them to build their stand at the show. So there's two different sets there. Now, some stand contractors and main contractors, some contractors do both functions. So they build stands and do main contracting work. But it's the who pays bit as to where the customer relationship sits. So a stand contractor may have very little to do with organisers because their customer base are people that are paying to be at the shows that the stand, that the customer has booked their space at, much like I buy space at, I don't know, off OTC Houston. I buy the space, but then the stand contractor would then talk to me about building the stand on there. So going back to your thing about where that stand contractor, we will pay them 50% up front and 50% when the stand's handed over or on invoice terms, whatever's agreed. The trading agreements between main contractors and organisers, entirely separate thing and entirely down to how they trade and how they bill and organise. Okay. So it's just a slightly different model. The main contracting market is there'll be some standard practices in there, but mostly it's a custom based one. But the exhibitor has paid 50% of their costs up front to be at that show.
Yeah, and that as a small supplier to the events industry, we, not on my side of the business, but on the photography and videography, we've done videos and photography for shows and not been paid because the show's gone under, and the show's happened, but the show's gone under. So therefore the bill hasn't been paid. So actually we are taking a risk in supporting like that. Perhaps, I think every part of the industry has its own risks, its own rewards, and it's working together.
And I think that's where we're going to stop.
Excellent.
So, really good. So award ceremonies, AI, and what not to say in your blog posts.
Brilliant. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for being guests today. We'll do it again next week.
Okay. Good stuff.
Brilliant. Okay. See you next week.
See you next week.
Weekend, folks. See you next week.
And cut.
This Week in Events is a production for the EPN Journal podcast. Huge thanks to our patrons, partners and industry friends for helping to make this possible. Details of how you can be a patron are in the show notes and on the EPN Journal website. Thanks for listening.